everyone, and welcome another day to Masters of the Music. In today's program, we are going to talk about two of the most famous alternative rock bands from Ireland, U2 and the Cranberries. As you know, I'm a huge fan of UK musicians, but today I wanted to learn a bit more about the Irish ones. To help us enter the intricate world of Irish rock, we have in the studio today two experts on the matter. Helen Barkley, English musicologist and huge fan of Irish bands, and Anna Álvarez, history researcher specialized in Irish studies. Thanks for coming.
Hi, thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure.
Through the storm we reached the shore. You gave it all, but I want more. And I'm waiting for you. With or without you. With or without you, I can't live. With or without you.
To start with, let's talk about the groups and its influence at the time. No one can doubt that U2 is one of the most famous bands of all time. What made them a top band?
Well, yes, U2, as many other bands from the 80s, were heavily influenced by the conflicts and state of their environment. In this case, we can clearly see how the IRA situation was in some sort of an inflection point, given a conflict that had already been going on for ages, more strength within popular culture. In this case, the band's great involvement in various international issues and innovative genres that closed the gap between pop rock and traditional Irish music made them greatly known. Of course, other bands followed closely, such as the Pogues with their mix between pop-punk and traditional Irish music.
Talking about known bands, Cranberries appeared years later too, parting from the 80s style and transitioning to the 90s music. Am I right?
Absolutely. The Cranberries were a band that was founded in 1989, transitioning from that music style that we were talking about seconds ago, towards more of an alternative rock, while still maintaining some elements from folk music styles. And as well, it had influences from jangle pop, indie pop, and even post-punk, introducing the world to their very unique twist to Celtic rock.
That's very interesting, thank you. Well, many of you might be wondering if there is another reason why we brought up two bands like U2 and Cranberries in one program. Apart from the obvious, I think now, Anna, you can bring up some light to this.
Yes, as Helen has previously introduced, the 80s were turbulent times of change, especially in Ireland. During those times, the Troubles, as they call it, took place. Irish were fighting for their independence against UK. IRA started terrorist attacks and people were fighting and persecuted all over the country.
Well, if you are a Peaky Blinders fan, the IRA might ring you a bell.
Yes, of course. Well, some of the most relevant things in the dispute occurred during the 80s, like, for example, the bombing of the hotel in where Margaret Thatcher itself was having a party conference. And even if years later she signed up an agreement to give some political power to the Irish, the conflict still continued for almost a decade more. These continued riots, of course, affected the life of many people, so it's not rare that it affected the music panorama too.
Yes, by the way, U2 released a whole album about the conflict, called War. Does Sunday Bloody Sunday sound familiar to you? Well, it refers to the massacre occurring in the 60s.
Yes, as well as their other song, Seconds, that was a critic to the atomic bombs and New Year's Day that was telling the story of a political prisoner of the time.
Yes, during those times there were many wars happening all over the world, and the message of the record was globally understood.
That's so true, thank you. But there's another hit that brought up the independence conflict. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Zombie by the Cranberries was a song released in 1994. And the sound was quite new, but The lyrics clearly picture what was happening during the 80s.
The violence causes silence. Who are we mistaken? But you see, it's not me, it's not my family. In your head, they are fighting with their tanks and their bombs and their bombs and their guns. In your head, they are crying. In your head, zombie, zombie, zombie. What's in your head? In your head, zombie, zombie, zombie.
The impact this song had is clear when it's still played in our radios.
I really love that song. I remember listening to it on the radio when my mom drove me to the school. We used to sing it in the car, so, good memories came back to my mind when I listened to it. It's an amazing voice, isn't it? It's difficult to find another outstanding voice like her. Well, changing a little bit the subject, and to finalize with the program, I think you can tell us a bit about yourself. Listeners will be curious about you. Anna, I'm interested in knowing why you decided to specialize in Irish history.
People always ask me that. I have always loved the UK, especially London, since I was a kid. I know the city as well as my hometown. I had started the degree on English history when I decided to visit Dublin, and the place captivated me so much that I decided to move to university there and specialize in the subject. The culture is also surrounded by mystery, and I want to uncover it.
That sounds challenging. And what about you, Helen? Why, out of all the music styles, you have devotion for the Irish bands?
Well, I have always loved traditional Celtic music as a Scot myself, and it was only a matter of time until I tried to find a blend between the more modern genres and the traditional sounds from the area. It just ended up being Irish bands that I was looking for.
Certainly. I learned a lot today. Thank you so much for coming to the program. And thanks to you, the listener, for being there another day. You make the program big. Leaving you with U2 Sunday Bloody Sunday. See you next week.